Yeah.
All right, that takes us to our next one here, Rashee Rice. He's available in 61% of leagues. He goes up against the Denver defense. In Week 5 at Minnesota, Rashee Rice, 5 targets, 4 catches. Most importantly, besides the 33 yards, Barry, he caught a touchdown, and that's what Rashee Rice's best ability for Patrick Mahomes should be.
You'll win some. We're in a bar right now. You'll win some bar bets, by the way, if you say, hey, who leads the Kansas City Chiefs in red zone targets? Everyone's going to say it's Travis Kelce, and the answer is Rashee Rice. He's been targeted on over 36% of his routes this season. That includes all players, minimum 20 targets. He's just earning a target is a skill. And so the fact is that when he's running a route, that he is earning a target on over 36% of those routes, I think it's really impressive. Now, we need him to play more routes, but it feels like they're getting there. Again, that Rashee Rice, there's a connection between him and Mahomes. We've talked about this a lot, about how they worked out in the offseason, that Mahomes went to the front office and said, draft Rashee Rice for me. They have. Next 4 opponents all are above average matchups for wide receivers. Broncos, Chargers, Broncos again, and then the Dolphins. So Rashee Rice, who continues to play more snaps, as you see it there on your screen. Yes, only 30% at the Vikings. That one was a little bit weird, but he did score the touchdown. His receptions are starting to get up there in the 5, 3, 4 range. He's just, I don't know that you feel great about him this week, but this is somebody that I do think will have a significant impact in the second half of the season on one of the best passing offenses in the NFL that is about to get rolling here. I know it was a down game against the Vikings, but, again, they played Denver this week on a short week, and then the Chargers, and then Denver again.
Yep. And Rashee Rice right now has the 11th best PFF grade of any wide receiver. He's ahead of guys like Mike Evans, Chris Olave. You just watch the game. He just looks better than all these other Chiefs receivers. And the big thing for Rashee Rice is, 1, his talent, but then 2, Sky Moore, it's just not happening for Sky Moore. Line through Sky Moore, I think, for this season until he figures stuff out. Kadarius Toney as well, again, just not happening. Rice is the one guy who has the upside.
I remained obsessed with Justin Watson. I don't know why he can't get on the field more. I feel like every time he's out there, he's beating a guy deep and earning a DPI or a long pass. And maybe his just route tree is limited. I don't get what it is with Justin Watson. But what I'll tell you is I think that's an important point here is as you look at, we always talk about this talent opportunity. I think we all agree Rashee Rice, talented kid, right? And so the opportunity in yes, they spread it around a lot, but there's no one on the Chiefs other than Kelce where you say, well, that guy demands targets. The way that with the Vikings, obviously Justin Jefferson demands targets. And so
I don't really understand what's happened to MVS, because in the AFC title game, Mahomes was like, all right, I'm throwing MVS every single time.
This year is non-factor.
Now he's had 7 catches in 5 games, so I think he is just the write-off as well. And Rice is the one guy who has the talent and the upside.
All right, and another busy offense, Lions wide receiver Josh Reynolds. He's got the Bucks. He's available in 59% of leagues, and the reason we bring this one up, Jay, is because Dan Campbell on Amon-Ra St. Brown playing Sunday, he goes, it's certainly more than questionable, closer to probable. Reynolds has been a factor in this offense. He's coming off week against Carolina, 4 catches, 76 yards, and a touchdown. He's a deep threat receiver in Ben Johnson's very effective passing game.
Yeah, and he's kind of become the embodiment of that second wide receiver who's a viable flex. He's the second guy in this offense in terms of wide receivers. Sam Laporta obviously is there as well as a pass catcher, but with Amon-Ra back, I think Josh Reynolds slides into that very Josh Reynolds-y type of role on your fantasy team, where he's the guy who's constantly on waivers and you pick up and you feel okay if he's your option. But I think Jameson Williams, his involvement ramping up, that's the
that's going to happen eventually. There will be a time in the season where we're talking about Jameson Williams over Josh Reynolds, but that week ain't this week. 65 receiving yards in 4 out of 5 games this year for Josh Reynolds, who is from Texas A&M University, Gig'em Aggies, 4 for 76 and a touchdown last week, and we don't mind the matchup at the Buccaneers.
That week 3 against the Falcons, the goose egg, got me cut in our guillotine league. So
just another reason to like Josh Reynolds.
Yeah, good.
Another reason to like Josh Reynolds.
Absolutely. All right, another Josh on here. Josh Downs, Colts wide receiver at Jacksonville, available in 91% of leagues in Week 5 against the Titans. 6 targets, 6 catches, 97 yards. Josh Downs has looked much better playing with Gardner Minshew.
25% target share with Minshew this season. Anthony Richardson, we'll talk about him a little bit more when we get to quarterbacks, but the fact of the matter is Richardson's going to miss some time. Minshew will be under center, and it does feel like the passing offense is a little bit more efficient, and there is a connection between Minshew and Josh Downs. They've played 3 games together. Josh Downs has 18 receptions in those games, and for people that the Colts aren't on a lot of national TV games here, Connor, so for people that aren't familiar with Josh Downs, who wasn't a big-name rookie coming out this year, What are they getting in this kid?
Old school slot, great with the two-way go. He can work inside, outside, great short area target. At college, he caught everything. I know he's had some ups and downs in the pros with that so far, but he caught everything for UNC, and he's a very shifty player. He's kind of like you, Matthew, when
very
it comes down to that. So if you're in a
like a young Matthew Berry,
Yeah.
I've heard some of the announcers talk about him when he's out there. Just very shifty,
That's
not
like
fast, but
the
shifty.
current Adam Thielen Matthew.
Yes.
Berry. Yeah, you can still get open, and still catch it.
If you're in
Can still
PPR,
doesn't have the
Downs will be
burst.
very, very effective. He's somebody that can easily catch 7 to 8 passes on any given day. Might not have a ton of yards, but the catches will be there.
Yeah, and Gardner Minshew, to your point, helps him more than Anthony Richardson does. Gardner Minshew doesn't have the ceiling or the upside or clearly the rushing ability of Anthony Richardson, but he's a more polished passer at this point.
Jacksonville, Cleveland, New Orleans, and then at Carolina are the next 4 games there. Cleveland's the only one that makes me a little bit nervous. New Orleans, obviously a very good defense, but Lattimore will likely be on Michael Pittman in that game. And actually the slot is where you attack the Saints because Lattimore is so good on the outside. So anyway, I like Downs. I like Downs, and I certainly like him this week against the Jags.
Our last wide receiver here, Jonathan Mingo. He's available in 92% of leagues. He's got Miami this week against Detroit. There was a lot of garbage time in this game as a whole, but he still had 7 targets, 5 catches, 48 yards. So, I mean, Matthew, the volume is there for Mingo in an offense that they're trying to find it for a young quarterback. It's a lot of Adam Thielen. They're trying to get the young receiver involved here.
Dolphins bottom 10 in terms of most wide receiver fantasy points allowed this season. We expect the Dolphins to put up a lot of points and Bryce Young's to be having to throw quite a bit in this game. So, yes, you're like, well, a lot of Mingo's production last week was junk time. I got a feeling
This is a thing.
It's going to be a thing. Like, I don't think it's a fluke. And by the way, that's okay. Junk time
counts the
counts
same.
in fantasy. It all counts the same. We like Jonathan Mingo here.
Yeah, and Bryce Young wasn't good against Detroit, but at least he showed that he could get to 247 yards in an NFL game, which I think was important because he wasn't really flirting with those totals previously. Mingo, I mean, he missed the week with the concussion and he missed the end of that game against Seattle with that, but before then, he's getting a ton of targets and playing a ton of snaps. Against the Saints, there was a point where he had like 8 targets for 3 yards, and it just wasn't happening, but it's him and Thielen in that offense as the wide receivers.
Jay, let's take a look at some deep league targets here. Week 6, waiver wire, of course. Commanders, wide receiver Curtis Samuel. He's available in 83% of leagues. Giants, wide receiver Wan'Dale Robinson, available in 76% of leagues. And the last one there, Jay, Trent Irwin of the Bengals, available in every fantasy league.
Yeah, Trent Irwin, whose value is going to depend on T. Higgins remaining out. But if he is out, with Joe Burrow and the health that he showed, all of a sudden Bengals pass catches become more interesting across the board. Curtis Samuel's a strange one, Matthew. It seems like Sam Howell's treating him as though he's Terry McLaurin, but he's not. He's Curtis Samuel. But the past 2 games, he's had 13 catches, over 100 yards, got a touchdown as well. Do you think he's going to continue to be used?
He's had at least 50 receiving yards in 4 out of 5 games this year. Like, he's been around. They like him. He's a Carolina guy, a Ron Rivera guy. I mean, they brought him over from Carolina where they were together. And clearly, given how bad my Commanders' defense is, they're going to have to throw. And so Samuel, who's playing the slot, again, Sam Howell, who's on pace to literally set an NFL record for sacks, can't get the ball out quick enough. So a lot of Curtis Samuel stuff is in the middle of the field, line of scrimmage, just get rid of the ball quickly. Samuel, of course, has great after-the-catch speed. So in a deeper league, you could do worse than Curtis Samuel. 2 first names, always a crowd pleaser. Wan'Dale Robinson, by the way, back-to-back games now with 6 targets, a 67% snap rate last week. He continues to ramp up. Again, it looks like it's going to be a lost season for the Giants, so I think they want to build up their young players. Wan'Dale Robinson, again, was a second-round pick of Brian Daboll, like the first offensive skill player drafted by this regime. So I just, I think there's something there. 10 targets for Trent Irwin last week, by the way. He played mostly in the slot. They moved Boyd outside, which I think was a little bit surprising.
Pretty handy to do that in a game where Jamar Chase had, 192 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. Still be able to get 10 targets.
Yeah, unbelievable. I guess everyone's always open.
To recap, let's take a look at Barry's Week 6 top wide receiver waiver targets. Number 1 there, KJ Osborne, Rashee Rice right after him, Josh Reynolds, rookies Josh Downs, and Jonathan Mingo. Here's your top 5 as we head into Week 6.
Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotorWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest Roto-World fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.